Now in science, you're supposed to just take this on the chin and, you know, accept the reviewers' comments, improve the paper, and then resubmit to another journal, which we did. So the next one was Public Library of Science. I submitted to them because they had published a journal recently about gorillas, the first tool use of gorillas, this big stick that had been made by these gorillas. And no one seemed to have noticed actually that the context of this tool was as a depth gauge to allow the gorilla to walk into the bay in the Congo. They move to the edge in quadrupedally and they step into the water bipedally with the gauge. So I thought this journal would be sympathetic to this idea, and of course they weren't. They just rejected it without even a comment, with no explanation at all, just reject. And so the next one that went to then was Current Anthropology. Now Current Anthropology have a special format where one of the papers is published and then the reviewers' comments are published as well, and the author then gets the chance to reply to those comments. Now I'm all for these ideas to be criticised and for people to see the criticisms of this idea. So I thought this was a really good idea to have this paper published here. Now after 7 months it did go to peer review, but you guessed it, it was rejected again. And when you read the reviewers' comments, again, it's really very disheartening. You know, basically it seemed to be based on personal incredulity that our ancestors would have ever gone in the water, things like that. They say things like, I didn't show selection. You know, I mean, the wading hypothesis has more selection than the others put together. It would kill you if you move quadrupedally in waist-deep water. And the other argument again was this taphonomy, the business of just because the fossils are found in swampy habitats doesn't mean to say that they lived there. Now, you know, I think that's just a very weak argument. Nobody disputes that humans or hominids lived in gallery forest habitats at least some of the time, and gallery forest habitats are waterside habitats. They are prone to seasonal flooding. So there really should be no argument about this. Now, I know that, you know, people who are sceptical about the aquatic ape theory would think that you know, I'm basically thinking there's a conspiracy here, there's some sort of a secret plot against people who are an aquatic ape proponent. Well, I don't believe that actually. I think that there's basically a lot of ignorance, people have misunderstood the idea. I don't think there's a deliberate kind of conspiracy against it, but I think clearly that the peer review process is at fault here. So it seems ironic that I came back into academia to try to expose what I thought was a really good idea of human evolution, and I seem to have stumbled across an even bigger problem, which is the peer review process itself. Now, I'm not the only person to complain about this. I suspect any researcher who's ever tried to submit a paper to a journal and had it rejected will understand exactly where I'm coming from. And in fact, there's a guy at UWA in the School of Agriculture who's written a couple of papers on this very point, and he actually produced this really funny poem, and I'll read it to you. You've posted in your paper to a journal of repute, and you're hoping that the referees won't send you down the chute. You'd better not build up a false sense of security. I've just received your manuscript and I'm the referee. This power's a revelation. I'm so glad it came to me. I can be a total bastard with complete impunity. I used to be a psychopath, but never more will be. I can deal with my frustrations now that I'm a referee. So this guy's obviously had a very frustrating time too, and I think it's, you know, pretty common. So I just want to end by saying, well, look, the solution to this is quite clear, I think. We need to have open peer review. We need to have all the reviews done online so that people know who they are, so that people can criticise the people that are doing the criticism. It seems to me that's absolutely essential. The other thing that we need to do is to use the electronic media that's been available now for years. All of the peer-reviewed journals still use this anachronistic old sort of print format, which is limited in space, expensive to produce. We don't need that anymore. We can, you know, have an infinite number of papers published in a particular journal every year. There's no need to have any physical limits anymore. And I would argue that anyone that's gone to the trouble to go to university to do a set of experiments, that's already been peer reviewed. It should just be in. Any stuff like this should just go in, and it should be marked maybe draft or rated in some sort of way, which can change over time, and the discussion should happen afterwards. The peer review should be after the paper's published, from the whole community, not just a few selected authorities that no one knows about. So we're actually creating a little project called EJ Science, the Electronic Journal of Science, and if you go to this URL, you'll be able to read about this idea in more detail. Over the next few months we're hoping to develop a prototype for an electronic journal, and we are committed to giving this away, the URL and any code that we write, to any international organisation that agrees with the principles of open peer review. Now, I'm not the only person that thinks this. Maciej Henenberg of Adelaide University has also written several articles and papers in support of this idea. So I just want to finish by some conclusions. 13 years I've been interested in this, and I feel like I've pretty much had enough. Getting your paper rejected 5 times is really soul destroying. It's very, all the work you do and you don't get even a single reward. It seems bizarre to me. So I've had enough. But basically the conclusions are, for me, clearly that Hardy's idea is not only not a silly idea, it's actually probably the best idea we've had since Darwin about human evolution. It answers all the major differences between apes and humans. I think that the reaction to it has really been a scandal of Piltdown proportions. We're all kids are taught in school about Piltdown Man and how ridiculous it was. Well, I think in the future people will look at this aquatic ape thing and the reaction to it in the same sort of light. How ridiculous. How could they have rejected this idea for so long on such flimsy grounds? I think my experience shows that the peer review process itself is flawed, and it needs revising and updating. It needs criticism and it needs updating. The Waterside Hypotheses of human evolution, are they correct? Well, we'll never know, but I think the evidence is pretty strongly in favour of them. I just want to say that this is not only my opinion, and here's a clip from Professor Tobias, where he also encourages his peers in science to look at this thing dispassionately and to not dismiss it and ridicule at it.
I see Elaine Morgan, through her series of superbly written books, presenting a challenge to the scientists to take an interest in this thing, to look at the evidence dispassionately, not to avert your gaze as though it was something that you hadn't ought to hear about or hadn't ought to see. And those who are honest with themselves are going to dispassionately examine the evidence. We've got to, if we're going to be true to our calling as scientists.
Just want to end with some acknowledgements. First and foremost has to be Elaine Morgan. She's been really the inspiration for me over all of these years. I consider it an absolute honour and privilege that I know her. I've been to visit her a number of times and we regularly correspond. She really is a fantastic person, very, very intelligent, excellent writer, and I think she's contributed more to the field of human evolution than most anthropologists do in a lifetime. I want to thank my supervisor, Nick Milne. Nick Milne has always been sceptical about this aquatic ape and still is today, but he's always been very encouraging and always supported me and given me a lot of help in whatever I needed to do. So I'd like to publicly thank Nick Milne. And also the university itself, UWA itself, has given me the opportunity to do this study, and no one has ever sort of tried to stop me and ridiculed it. It's been great support from UWA. And the Australasian Society for Human Biology, which gave me the platform to give this talk, and various others. It's been really great to be able to share these ideas to scientists in the field. Most of all, I suppose I want to thank my wife and family who have put up with me and my obsession over all these years, dragging them to the other side of the world and doing all this crazy work, and I'd like to thank all of them as well. I just want to end with an advertisement. My niece has a terrible condition called Batten disease, which is obviously tragic for her but also for her family, and I want to encourage people to take an interest in Batten disease, find out about it, and if having learned a little bit about it, they have some charity funds available to give some money to these people. Here are some web addresses which you might use to do that.